Hello, and welcome to this week's podcast where I want to talk to you about being honest. Now, I am going to, as some of my examples, they're going to be quite explicit and personal in nature. So before you carry on listening to the podcast, please make sure that younger ears can't hear this podcast because it may not be appropriate for that kind of under 18s generation. Oh, are you curious now about what I'm going to talk about being honest? So this podcast episode is really going to complement on from um last week's episode where I talked about who you are or who are you. And being honest is the kind of next step in um evolution, I feel, because I don't know about you, but I find that I people please quite often. So what I mean by that is I do things that I don't want to do in order to make sure that they're happy. But then what happens is I do it feeling obligated and resentful, and that can't feel good for either party. So I've got a couple of examples about where being honest is actually, as long as we're being honest from a real place of love, it's a real integrity thing for me. And this isn't just being honest with other people. This is being honest with yourself. This is really being honest with the type of person that you want to be. So I've got three examples: sex, cooking, and cats. They are completely separate topics. Let's not put those three together. But let's start off with the cooking. This was really interesting. I experienced this at the weekend. So I decided a couple of months ago that I wasn't going to cook on a Sunday. My son then called it Simple Sunday. It's going to be Simple Sunday. I don't cook on a Sunday. And that has been okay until this weekend when I kind of started beating myself up for not wanting to cook. And I had this kind of voice in my head. I mean, it was that time of month when, we're a bit bitchy to ourselves and everybody else anyway. But I had this voice in my head that was like, yeah, but Nikki, you're the mum and you're responsible for your children's health and your husband's been at work all day and you've been doing nothing. So really you should be cooking. And not only should you be cooking, you should want to cook. You should want to do this for your family. And I think that's the bit that's really quite painful is the you should want to do this. Um, so where honesty came into that was taking a deep breath and going, right, okay, let's just be honest. What that voice is telling me, that's not true. That's society's conditioning. But also acknowledging that there was a part of me that what I do want to look after my children. So there's a conflict here, isn't there? There's a conflict between wanting to look after my children and my husband and not wanting to cook. So I still chose not to cook. What I actually did was had something in the freezer that I just stuck in the oven, which I don't really see as cooking. But in that process of allowing my boys, releasing them to do what they wanted, I felt really antsy. I felt really uncomfortable. I felt antsy. I felt agitated. Um, and I was watching myself with just fascination and going, isn't this really interesting? Like, what do I want more here? Do I want more to overcome myself and cook? Or do I want to overcome myself and allow my boys the freedom to learn how to look after themselves? And part of that process is that discomfort whilst you change. Whilst you're kind of sitting, you've got this belief that you should be looking after people on one hand, and then this belief that actually, if you release that, they can grow and learn. And I get a Sunday that's lovely. Which would I want more? One's going to keep me stuck. If I stay cooking and not teaching them and going with conditioning, I'm going to stay stuck there. And that might be okay. Or, which would be uncomfortable as well, because it's not part of me doesn't want to do that. Or do I want the growth of letting my boys learn, giving them the opportunity to be independent, giving myself a break? That's going to, and overcoming the conditioning is going to grow me and up my family. So either choice is is uncomfortable. One keeps you stuck and one grows you. But it was just fascinating being honest with myself in that moment. Which part do I actually really want to work on? Because if I'm going to manage my mind either way, which one do I actually want to manage my mind over? So I chose compassion for myself. I chose to feel antsy and agitated, knowing that this is because I'm going against what I have been raised to believe, what I have been conditioned as a woman. And it's called cognitive dissonance. It's the actual change in the neurons in our brain. And the brain's like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? But the more we go through that, the calmer it gets, and new neural pathways are connected. So this is, again, science. This is actually a thing. So that's one example of where being honest and with other people. I was kind of like, I said to my husband, look, I'm just bored. I'm tired of constantly cooking. And I just want a day where I don't have to think about it. Being honest with my boys as like, you are more than capable of cooking for yourself now. I will help you learn, but you are more than capable, and empowering them to be independent boys. And then being honest with myself with compassion when that like agitated feeling comes up, and letting myself feel that agitation. And next time it won't be as bad. And then the time after it won't be as bad, and the time after it won't be as bad, and it reduces. So that's one example of how to be honest. Another example is around sex. So I love my husband. He's amazing. I love having sex with him. I always enjoy it. But I don't have a massive sex drive. And he said to me the other day, he's like, Nikki, I'd really like some sexy time. I was like, yeah, let's let's plan it in. But I will warn you that my period is due. And sure enough, we have the house to ourselves today. Would have been the perfect time, but my period started, and I just don't feel sexy. I just don't. And but this is the explicit bit, and I hope I'm not oversharing too much. But I was willing to do something. So I said to him, I said, Johnny, I said, I'm really not feeling sexy. My period started. I'm not feeling sexy. I said, but I am willing to get my tits out and give you a jelly job. Now, I'm not going to go into what jelly job is. That's a whole other podcast. But it made us both laugh. And I was being honest. I'm like, I really don't want full-blown sex. I'm just not in that space today to engage in that way. But here's what I'm happy to do. Or if I wasn't happy to do anything, I could have just left the conversation at, I'm really sorry, can we do it another time? But that was being honest. And I could have made up an excuse. I could have made up a reason, but I wouldn't have been genuine. I wouldn't have been authentic. And that doesn't feel good to me. It feels out of line. And it takes courage to say the truth. Another example is the cat. So I don't have cats. I don't even like cats. I'm definitely a dog person. And our dog's getting old. She's very low maintenance. I don't really want to look after anything other than my business and my family. So no pets after she goes, initially anyway. But my neighbour opposite has got a cat who she adores, and she will ask me to look after this cat. And I don't like cats. I don't want to look after a cat. But I do want to be a good neighbor. So this is one of those times where I'm like, I choose to do something I wouldn't be my like ideal thing to do because that's the type of person I want to be. That's the type of neighbor I want to be. I want to be able to ask for her to ask me anytime. Um, and if it's not convenient, then I would say no. But that's being honest with myself. It's like, no, I don't really want to do that, but I do want to be a good neighbor. So I'm choosing to do something I wouldn't normally choose to do. That's being honest. And I had a conversation with my sister-in-law earlier, and I love this so much. She was able to say to me, Nikki, I know that you'll say no to this if you don't want to. And the fact that she knows I'll say no means that when I do say yes, I'm not doing it out of obligation. I'm not doing it out of resentfulness. So it was two things she was asking me about. One I said yes to, the other I said no to. And because I say no, she knows that when I say yes, I mean it. And you might have relationships in your life. You might know people at work or in your family or in the wider community that you feel like they're just saying yes because they have to, not because they really want to. So it feels shit on both parties when we're not honest. But because I've been honest and because I have said no to things very lovingly, it means that when I do say yes to something, they know I mean it. They know I really want to do it. I've said this to them about their dog. They've got a gorgeous dog. It's big. It's not my choice of dog. And I've said to them, look, if it was an emergency, obviously I would willingly look after your dog. But I'm not going to look after it for a holiday because I don't want that big dog in my house. I don't want to spend time walking it, looking after it, doing all the things. I don't want to do that. So if it's an emergency, of course I would help you out. But if it's a holiday, no. And because I'm honest from a huge place of love, they then know that when they ask me something and I say yes, it's because I want to do it. I'm not doing it out of resentful obligation. And being honest takes courage. It takes courage. It's uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the better it feels for you and the better you get at doing it. So just try something small. Just try saying no to something tiny that you don't actually really like. Just try small and realize it doesn't kill you. Even if that, so also I should add a note to this actually. When you do start saying no to things that you would normally have said yes to, or when you stop people pleasing, the people around you might be a bit like, what's going on? Are you, what's happening with you? You're not your normal self. That's okay too. That's okay. There's an adjustment on both parts. But there's a real freedom in honesty. As long as that honesty is done from love, which is why sometimes I don't follow through on my honesty, because if it's coming from a place of agitation and irritation, it's not going to land well. And with the cooking, going back to the cooking on a Sunday, I have actually had to allow myself to say no agitatedly or annoyingly, because that is kind of part of the process. Because in that moment, I am a bit agitated, and that's okay. It's kind of like a process that we have to go through. But there's a freedom, there's a huge freedom on the other side of being honest, and it's available to you should you want to learn how to do it. And as always, let's have a chat if you want to know more. Sending you so much love, so much encouragement. Just start small, and the other side is incredible. Have an amazing week. Bye bye.